Well, hello again. Tonight we want to take a look at Leviticus, but this is going to simply be an overview. Uh, I've taken this from BibleHub.com, which gives you like a 32,000 foot flyover of the book. Uh, and that's because the book actually only covers a period of 30 days, and it discusses all of the laws that we studied in Exodus. The temple is put up, and God is showing Moses and the priest and the people how to put the Ten Commandments and the 600 plus additional laws into practice. And since we studied all of that, and it would take at least 30 weeks to get through the book of Leviticus to restudy things we've already studied, I just decided I'd cover it here in short order, and then we'll move on to the book of Numbers next, which has all kinds of great stuff, and it lasts 40 years. So uh, we use BibleHub.com, and I just want to give credit where credit's deserved. They show as a key verse in this study, speak to the whole congregation of Israel and tell them, be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. It's out of Leviticus 19, verse 2. As a summary, Leviticus outlines the laws and traditions given by God to the Israelites through Moses, focusing on holiness, worship, and atonement. It details the offerings, the priestly duties, dietary laws, and moral codes, emphasizing purity and the sanctity of life. The book underscores God's holiness and the need for his people to live in obedience and righteousness. As far as the title of the book and the author, the book of Leviticus derives its name from the Latin Leviticus, taken from the Greek leutikon, meaning pertaining to the Levites. So it's a book of the Levites. And traditionally, scholars attribute it to Moses. Pretty sure the first 5 books are all by Moses, although there's a few people that argue that isn't the case. Now, this understanding is supported by numerous references within the text to God speaking directly with Moses, including the very first verse. Now, historical context, Leviticus was written as the Israelites wandered in the wilderness. It was around the 15th century BC, following the Exodus from Egypt, and the establishment of the covenant at Mount Sinai. And so the narrative is set in the context of a newly constructed tabernacle where God dwelled among his people. Now, the audience for this and the purpose, the text addresses the Israelite community, especially the priests and Levites, guiding them in worship and the sacrificial system. It instructs all Israelites on living as God's holy people. And the book outlines the sacrifices and purity laws and moral guidelines for maintaining a relationship with the Holy God. As far as style and genre, the Leviticus is primarily a legal text. It's documenting the laws and the regulations. It's written in a straightforward instructional style with occasional narrative elements. And it's broken up into a number of divisions. Leviticus 1 through 7 deals with the sacrificial offerings. So if you're interested in that, that's a good place to go and just read about and study the sacrificial offerings. In chapters 8 to 10, it talks about the consecration of the priest. Chapter 11 through 15, the laws of purity. In chapter 16, the Day of Atonement. In chapters 17 to 22, holiness in worship and in life. In Leviticus 23 through 25, talks about the sacred times, the sabbatical year, the year of Jubilee. So that is another topic you might well be interested in spending a lot of time studying. In chapter 26, it talks about the blessings and the curses. And in 27, the vows and the tithes. So that's a breakdown of the book. The first, or origins, the first mentions, as I've been calling them in our study. This is the first formal mention of the Day of Atonement. And it comes up in Leviticus 16. It's the first appearance of the scapegoat concept, where the sins of the people are laid on the heads of the scapegoat, and the scapegoat is sent out into the wilderness to die, carrying the sins of the people out to the wilderness to die. And like I've mentioned before, you have no guarantee the scapegoat died. Years later, they decided to actually bring the scapegoat out on a mountain and toss it over, so they'd be sure that the scapegoat died. Otherwise, they would go another year without the sin. This is the first time you see the command to love your neighbor as yourself in Leviticus 19, verse 18. It's the first detailed dietary code that distinguishes clean and unclean animals. And if you can live without bacon and stuff, then you could read about that in Leviticus 11. This is where Jubilee was instituted, the 50-year economic reset. How awesome would that be today if every 50th year was the year of Jubilee and you were set free from all your debt, your house, your cars, everything, credit cards, whatever. Although today we would just abuse it. It's the first explicit prohibition of same-sex acts. So if you're dealing with somebody caught up in that sinful lifestyle, you can read about that in Leviticus 18 and maybe have something to use to talk it over with them about. It's the first recorded case of a capital punishment for blasphemy. That's in Leviticus 24, verses 10 to 16. And it's the first mandate of perpetual altar fire in Leviticus 6, verse 13. And you see the first comprehensive laws on bodily discharges and purification. So if that floats your boat, you can read about that in Leviticus 12 through 15. Now, it's the key people in Leviticus, which we try to hit in each of these studies. The Lord, of course, Yahweh, and he comes out right in Leviticus 1:1. The central figure in Leviticus, the Lord, speaks to Moses and provides the laws and the instructions for the Israelites, particularly concerning sacrifices, purity, and holiness. Second, of course, would be Moses. He also comes up in Leviticus 1:1. He's the prophet and the leader of the Israelites who receives the laws and the commandments from the Lord directly. He acts as an intermediary between God and the people, Moses being like Jesus. Jesus gave us the laws from the Father, and he mediates between us and the Father today. Third is Aaron, Moses' older brother. He pops up in chapter 8, verse 2. Aaron's the brother of Moses and the first high priest of Israel. He's consecrated and anointed to serve in the priestly role, and his descendants are designated as priests, the Levite tribe. And Aaron has sons. We've seen their names before. The sons of Aaron come up in Leviticus 8, verse 2. They're named Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Ithamar, maybe, I don't know. They are also consecrated as priests. So it's a family affair. And they assist Aaron in his duties, although Nadab and Abihu later faced consequences for offering unauthorized fire before the Lord. It doesn't go well for them. Now, Nadab and Abihu you would read about in Leviticus 10, the two eldest sons of Aaron who offer the unauthorized fire before the Lord are consumed by fire as a result of their disobedience. God zaps them. And next are the third and fourth sons, Eleazar and Ithamar. In Leviticus 10, verse 6, the remaining sons of Aaron who continue to serve as priests after the death of their brothers, Nadab and Abihu. I'm pretty sure they don't offer up ungodly, unauthorized fire after watching their brothers get barbecued. So if you want a pretty decent overview of the book, I suggest you look for Leviticus at BibleHub.com, or really any Bible book. You can go to BibleHub.com and they give you a pretty good overview of what's in the book. And I would love to study. If I thought there was time, I would love to have gone through the whole Bible from end to end. I don't think there's time for me. I don't think there's time for Christians prior to the rapture to get through the whole Bible. So I wanted to do the best I could, and I believe our best use of time for the amount of time it takes is to go to the book of Numbers. And we're going to see Israel wander for 40 years to make an 11-day trip because of their unbelief and their murmuring and complaining and griping. And boy, what lessons there are for us to learn. And we're going to see Joshua growing into the man that ends up replacing Moses at the end of the book of Numbers. So we're going to see the spies go into the land on 2 occasions. And so it's a really interesting book. I'm looking forward to it. So since we spent so much time on these things in our Exodus study, I just decided to move ahead to the book of Numbers for our next study. It would take us another year to go through Leviticus, and it didn't seem to make sense to me, seeing at the times we're living in, and the fact that we spent so much of our time on these topics already. And so you might want to read through Exodus 36 through 40 on your own, and then through Leviticus 1 through 27, and see the continuity of the story. But Exodus is a book that lasts 40 years, 400 years. No, I'm off my numbers. My brain's not functioning. Anyway, Leviticus is a 30-day book. The whole book is about a 30-day period of time between Exodus and moving into the Promised Land. And that will be a period of 40 years that they will spend wandering in the wilderness. The whole generation that left Egypt will die in the wilderness, with the exception of Joshua and Caleb. And you would think, well, only 2 guys out of 2.5 or 3 million people. Well, probably not, because first of all, the only ones who are numbered are men of fighting age, from 20 and up, that can fight. So that's roughly a third to a quarter of the population. And then I'm sure Joshua and Caleb's families made it with them. I hope they did. So I'm going to focus my study on the book of Numbers next, and I hope you'll join us for that study. So that's it for this week. Again, have a happy Resurrection Week celebration. Remember, it's all about Jesus. And we'll get together again next week to start the book of Numbers. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Rick, you get feeling better. What can you do to get feeling better?
I don't know.